Good morning, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, let's get into the news this Wednesday morning. And earlier in the month, or maybe even late last month, President Trump had put a statement out over on Street Social talking about how if he's elected president and again, he would issue full pardons for the people who are currently locked up in January 6th, and issue a full apology on behalf of the United States government for their treatment, and of course, help restore wages and things that were lost to them during this wrongfully imprisonment by our government as they continue to hold political prisoners. Well, apparently, Lizard, Lindsey Graham and other rhinos are upset that President Trump has made that statement, that he is willing to pardon these non-violent offenders of January 6th, from the clutches of our political prisoner system, that we have the DC Guantanamo Bay, if you will, our own gulag in the heart of the seat of democracy, right? The seat of our republic, is how it should be. But we continue to hold political prisoners there for the Democrat Party, because they want to continue to make Trump supporters miserable, make them suffer. And that's what they've been doing. And so Lindsey Graham, of course, as we know as a rhino, is someone who likes Democrats, who supports Joe Biden, who loves the limelight of the mainstream media, has now scolded President Trump and his commitment to free those individuals. So let's go and take a look what we have here. It says never trust these dirtbags. Lindsey Graham GOP Senator slam. Trump says pardon for January 6 protesters is a bad idea, says nothing about protesters in prison for over a year without a trial though. Of course, Lindsey Graham, these people are so ridiculous. At some point, these horrible rhinos will notice there's no one standing behind them right now. Sydney Senators Lindsey Graham, Mike Rounds and Kevin Cramer slammed Trump and said pardons for January 6 protesters are a bad idea. These same senators have said nothing about the men and women in present day without trial following the January 6 protest. There are Trump protesters rotting in prison today, who we regularly report who have committed no violence, and who did not even enter the U.S. Capitol on January 6. Senate Republicans believe this is acceptable. These wimps will never be on your side. Never. Former President Trump's promise to grant pardons to the rioters who stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021, is running into strong opposition from Senate Republicans. Lindsey Graham, one of Trump's closest allies, told The Hill that granting pardons to January 6 protesters is a bad idea. Pardons are given to people who admit misconduct and rehabilitate themselves. They're not supposed to be used for or other purposes. He said other Republican senators are joining Graham and criticizing Trump's promise to pardon the January 6 protesters is as inappropriate. I don't think political potential candidates should hold pardons out as a promise. That Kevin Cramer, who is from North Dakota, who is usually a reliable Trump ally, is somewhat problematic for me on a moral level and ethical level, sort of like promising other giveaways to particular individuals. I prefer avoiding those kind of things. He said Mike Rounds of South Dakota as well has said he wouldn't support granting pardons to people convicted of crimes because of their actions on January 6. If he were elected, he would have the Constitution ability to do it. He said of Trump's promise to pardons, I would disagree with it. I think there was an insurrection. I think these folks needs to be punished. There was done an insurrection. These people are liars. They're mad because the people stood up and said, no, we don't believe you guys. We saw what happened on that day. And we're here to voice our opposition to it. And the feds helped hijack that movement. They sensed the anger and they knew they could get enough people to go along with it. This is what the swamp, the Eunice Party all want. They hate the average, everyday, ordinary American people that they screw over every single day to send billions to other countries and foreign aid. Well, people in this country continue to suffer. While people in this country continue to have to deal with high inflation, continue to deal with high gas prices, energy costs, open border, high food prices, high rent prices, high mortgage payments, everything else that comes along with this, it's because they could care less about it. They rather give money elsewhere than to help this nation, and they would rather see American protesters to suffer and die inside custody in the DC gulag. This is how despicable these people are. Tucker Carlson goes scorched earth on the Biden regime, as he exposes on live TV the list of names of those Biden is politically targeting. We're gonna see precisely who the FBI has been reading, when I'll reveal why it's all too little too late. There's absolutely nothing the Biden regime can do to stop their inevitable demise. Alright, let's dive right in here. Last Friday afternoon, I did a video commenting on Steve Bannon's claim on The Charlie Kirk Show that the FBI on that day alone were raiding homes have upwards of 35 MAGA officials. We now know who they were. And that's thanks to the amazing investigative work of Tucker Carlson. In fact, Tucker went a step further. Tucker actually obtained a subpoena issued by Attorney General Merrick Garland over the past weekend, and Tucker exposes an astonishingly brazen act of desperation by the Biden administration on live TV. Everyone listen to this. This is harassment on political grounds. It's illegal, it's unconstitutional. It shocks the conscience of everyone who sees it. But the number of people who see it is very small because it is not covered by any media. And it's not just happening to me, Kramer. This show's obtained a subpoena from Merrick Garland DOJ issued in the past week, and what it demands is both unlawful and without precedent in American history. The subpoena claims to be investigating, quote, any claim that the Vice President and/or President of the Senate had the authority to reject or choose not to count presidential electors. Now, keep in mind that any claim you make as an American citizen about electors, any claim you make about American politics period is protected explicitly under the First Amendment. That's our core freedom. It's why we live here. It's why we're proud to be Americans. It's why so many American servicemen died protecting our country. Those are the freedoms that they fought to preserve. That's why nobody prosecuted leading Democrats in 2016 when they sought to reject electors for Donald Trump. Right? It's why none of those people, including Kamala Harris, is now in jail. But right now, according to a subpoena that we have obtained, Merrick Garland as DOJ is debating all communication from the following people on this topic, and let's be clear, before we read their names, that it is not clear what the investigation is actually about. And that's the most terrifying part. What is this? On? What grounds are you demanding my private communications with people they never say? But included in this precedent-breaking sweep of political opponents of the Biden White House would be former White House advisor Bernie Kerik, who is the former police commissioner of New York City Boris Epshteyn, who is the current attorney for Donald Trump. At no time in American history has it been okay to grab the personal communications of someone's lawyer because those are privileged? Not anymore. Matt Morgan, Justin Clark, Kaz Chesbro, Mike Roman, RNC official Joshua Finley, Trump attorneys John Eastman, Jenna Ellis, Joe Jennifer, James Troopers, Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Victoria, Tanzi, Cleeded, Mitchell, Bruce Marks. We could go on and on and on and on. The DOJ is now going after former White House officials, Stephen Miller, frequent guest on this show, with a subpoena. Why? Well, it could be because Stephen Miller went on this network and said, quote, if we win these cases in the courts, then we can direct the alternate state of electors are certified. In other words, he didn't call for the lack insurrection, much less violence or a coup. He called for alternate electors to be seated if the court ordered them to be seated. In other words, he was following the constitutionally prescribed process. Post-election. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He was following the rules. But under Joe Biden, that apparently is now a crime. Alright, so as you can see, that's a pretty astonishing list, and just hearing some of those names, you know, some of the more notable ones: Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Boris Epshteyn, Bernie Kerik, Jenna Ellis, Joe DiGenova. This is clearly, as Tucker put it, this is clearly a political persecution. This is the weaponizing of our legal system. Targeting specifically key figures surrounding Joe Biden's most likely opponent in 2024 is about as banana republic as we can possibly get. And I have to ask, where is Mitch McConnell in all of this? Where the hell is Lindsey Graham? Where the hell is Andy McCarthy? He's just dying to be the next Speaker of the House. Where's the GOP leadership right now? Why are they sitting so quietly as the Biden administration raids and persecutes Republicans? And where are the Republicans are standing up and defending people like Lisa Gallagher, a New Jersey woman who did nothing more than voice her support for President Trump on Facebook? She woke up last month to the sound of 3 FBI agents showing up to her door claiming they got synonymous to a freaking anonymous tip that Lisa was at the Capitol on January 6, despite the fact that she wasn't. Where are the Republican leaders coming out in defense of her? They're nowhere to be found. Are they really that level of swamp rat that they won't even defend their own? I can think of no more explicit reason why we see neocon rhinos as literally no different, fundamentally no different from the party of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, they may not be ordering the raids, but they sure as hell aren't doing anything to stop them. That's for sure. What's happening currently in Washington, D.C. is a phenomenon that's known as weaponized legalism. It's a technical term for the politicalization of the law, right? Weaponized legalism, a weaponized legal regime, which we now live in. Thanks to the Democrats, thanks to the rhinos, and to the hopeless legacy media. A weaponized legal regime uses the law to deliberately undermine their political opponents, strengthen themselves in their allies, and threaten and intimidate anyone thinking of getting in their way. These are the three main objectives for the weaponization: the law undermining your political opponents, strengthening your own political power, and intimidating anyone else who might be thinking of getting in your way. And that is precisely what the ruling class in Washington, D.C. has become. They have become a weaponized legal regime that uses the law as a political weapon. Now, we may be asking why now? Why is the regime adopting this radically partisan eyes posture? Well, the answer is very simple. Donald Trump is what happened. Donald Trump did what no viable political figures ever allowed to do. And that is he channeled and targeted mass popular resentment against the permanent political class. You see, the permanent political class has long used something called resentment politics to divide and conquer the populace. So for centuries, going all the way back to ancient Greece, the political class successfully deflected mass resentment away from itself, by focusing instead on the threat of external enemies, because either like the external enemies to the polis to the nation state or whatever, because external threats breed internal solidarity, but beginning in the 60s, particularly among leftist politicians, those under the influence of cultural Marxist sentiments, let's see racism and sexism and all kinds of phobias pervading society. They began deflecting resentment away from themselves by focusing on an internal enemy, and the enemy that exists in the midst of us. And that's the source and perpetuator of all social evils and ills. And that's what made Trump so unique. From the moment he announced his candidacy, he laser focused mask resentment back on the permanent political class. That's why they hate him so much. That's why they're so obsessed with getting rid of him. The good news in all of this is that there's simply no putting this genie back in the bottle. Come this November, we're going to have the single most populous Congress in our nation's history since the 1920s. And these are going to be brand new, ultra-mega Republicans who are playing for keeps. Now they'll have subpoena power. Now, they'll be manning the oversight committees. Now, they'll be into investigating Joe Biden's involvement with Hunter's illicit business dealings. Now, they'll be filing articles of impeachment, and not just against Biden but against Merrick Garland, to the Attorney General himself, the very one ordering these rates. So all of this is to say, gang, strap yourselves in, this is going to get real very soon. Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button to watch the next episode.